presenting Resolution 13 that is a part of unfinished business. Resolution, unfinished business, Resolution 13. Thanks. Yep.
In 2019 General Council meeting, Resolution 13 entitled Child Safety was considered. It was designed to change the bylaw so that it would become a chargeable offense against a minister who neglected to follow child abuse prevention recommendation steps. The matter was referred to the Executive Presbytery for consultation with attorneys in California, Massachusetts, New York, Oregon, Washington, and such other attorneys as the Executive Presbytery may desire. The motion continued to read, said attorneys shall be one who litigate lawsuits regarding claims of child abuse against churches or religious organizations, to ascertain the degree of legal liability for Assemblies of God churches, ministers, and affiliated ministries if this resolution were to be adopted. That motion was silent as to whether the referral to the Executive Presbytery was intended for them to do the research and make a decision on it, or to bring back a report to this body for consideration. While it could have been an issue the Executive Presbytery could have decided, the thought was to go the extra mile and bring it back to this body today. While there is no question we all carry a concern for child safety, Resolution 13 would have resulted in our most public document, our bylaw, placing what seemed to be an undefined demand on ministers that was not possible to monitor by districts or the General Council, and would have played right into the hands of plaintiff's attorney, creating legal risk when the intention was to create safety for children. Our legal counsel, Dr. Rich Hammer, contacted attorneys, and the unanimous response from those who responded is Dr. Hammer's recommendation to the Executive Presbytery that Resolution 13 not be adopted or fail. Today, that is his recommendation to this body. It is also the recommendation of the Executive Presbytery that Resolution 13 from 2019 not be adopted. I want to share is child safety as a value for our fellowship. Absolutely it is, without a doubt. In fact, we can point to 5 initiatives to that end available to every minister and district under child safety. And I want to briefly highlight those. The first is Child Abuse Prevention Process, created by Dr. Rich Hammer and available to every credentialed minister at AG Passport. Secondly is Child Safety Practices and Guidelines, a robust list of 14 elements that Dr. Rich Hammer has put together to guide churches in creating safe environments for children. The third item is a series of video presentations created by Hydrate Ministry from our children's department, from our Kid Min department, that helps churches train children's ministry and has a segment on child safety. This segment is a part of our General Superintendent's value-added product, available to every minister to watch online, with an opportunity on their credential renewal form to indicate whether they watched the videos online. The fourth element was just passed by the General Presbytery a few days ago. It came from the Assembly of God Mental Health Care Committee that was formed in 2018. That committee submitted to the EP that was then received by the General Presbytery, and the document is Guidelines for Mandatory Reporting for Abuse of Minors. Fifth and finally, there are several companies that help local churches with background checks and processes for child safety. Many of them are attached to the insurance carrier that your church uses. And the Assemblies of God Multiplication Network uses and recommends and has negotiated a special Assembly of God price for these services with a specific company called Ministry Safe. Your AG contact to get the special discount would be to email jsimmons JSimmons@ministrysafe.com. The initial J for Jennifer, JSimmons@ministrysafe.com. Identify yourself in Assembly of God Church, and you'll get their special price. So, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Executive Presbytery, I recommend that Resolution 13 not be adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Yesterday, this body allowed for our parliamentarian, Rich Hammer, who also serves as our legal counsel, be able to speak. And so I thought it'd be appropriate to have him come and talk about what he discovered in this process that has brought us to this point.
Good morning. Yes, it was contacting ultimately 12 attorneys about Resolution 13. I heard back from 7, and the verdict was unanimous that they opposed Resolution 13. Not that there was not some residual benefit to it, but they thought the risks associated with it outweighed the benefit. And then secondly, the resources that Donna just mentioned, the 5 resources, are the best available, in my opinion, to address this issue of child abuse in churches. And so I think they've done the work that Resolution 13 was proposing to do, I think, in a way that would eliminate risk to the General Counsel and districts. So that's why I am personally opposed to it. I agree with the sentiment and the purpose. Nobody's done more than me, I think, to address this terrible risk that churches face. I read every case decided in this country involving religious organizations, and I can tell you for 24 of the last 25 years, this is the #1 risk facing churches. If you want to know what is the most likely reason your church is going to end up in court, it's child abuse. So it's an issue we must take seriously. In fact, there was a case decided just last year by a federal appeals court affirming a verdict of $22 million in a case of child abuse at a Jewish day school involving a teacher who was a rabbi. $22 million for one incident or for one victim of child abuse. So you think about that. How much insurance do you have? How could you possibly respond to something like that? And so we must take this issue seriously. I think the 5 resources we put together do that.
Okay, thank you. It's before you, and so it doesn't need to be moved and seconded, because the recommendation is that we are bringing back from study is that this resolution and unfinished business fail. Microphone number 3, would you please identify yourself? And
Ryan Darrow, Kansas City.
all right, let's turn that up a little bit so we can hear. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I do rise to speak against the resolution,
Okay.
if I may. So, greetings, fellowship family. My name is Ryan Darrow. In 10 years, I've been the lead pastor of Overland Park First Assembly of God Church in Kansas City, Kansas. And I'm not accustomed to eyes, don't necessarily want to stand before you today, but I've been told that perhaps it would be beneficial if I shared a few today. So along with my ordination 17 years ago, I'm also a marriage and family therapist with a doctorate in counseling. I've taught 2 to 3 face-to-face college classes, including every semester for the last 13 years, classes which include child development, my favorites, and my second favorite, professional, legal, and ethical issues in counseling. I've taught continuing education classes for the state of Kansas as well as the state of Arizona for professional counselors on abuse reporting. My family and I, my wife and I, are a licensed foster home. I've trained countless ministers, best practices, guidelines for abuse recognition and reporting, and I've eclipsed over 17,000 clinical hours as a therapist. Probably most importantly and most germane to this topic today is that I've filed dozens, if not hundreds of reports over the years with both police departments and child protective services, and I've been in court probably a dozen times as a professional witness over the years. So humbly submitted today, I'm an expert in abuse prevention, law, and reporting. If we were to vote for titles of resolutions today, I believe that I could speak for everyone to say that we would all line up to vote yes for this title, Child Abuse Prevention and Child Safety. But hear my heart when I say this. In its intent, Resolution 13 is a kingdom principled, Christ-like kindness which reflects the heart of Jesus to the least of these, to abused children, So make no mistake, if any of us would come into the knowledge of a child being abused or neglected, we would count it a privilege to advocate on that child's behalf. And we would do it, simply calling a local police department if necessary, or to pick up a telephone and simply dial 1-800 for a child. I believe the original authors of this resolution should be commended for their efforts in their attempt to protect children. The primary problem with Resolution 13 is in its scope, because in essence, if passed, Resolution 13 would, as our secretary said, would codify, and I believe I'm quoting her correctly, in our most public and accessible document, that a minister could be charged against their credential for failing to do what? Follow the guidelines for child abuse prevention, a list that is, as I teach in my professional legal and ethical issues college class, it's a vast, immeasurable, ambiguous, oftentimes subjectively immeasurable, and at times, sometimes the changes are only within the purview of the church board, not even the pastor. So all of this without accountability being possible by the General Counsel. What does the General Counsel know? Whether or not we have windows in every door or churches, if we require 2 babies in the adult nursery. I am personally capable and even happy to take personal responsibility and legal liability for my building and for my policies and for my faith family there in Kansas City. Even as a professional in this area, I find it difficult to oversee all of the churches in Kansas City. The whole state of Kansas would be impossible. Yet the adoption of Resolution 13 would obligate each network and the General Counsel to monitor 13,000 churches and 36,000 ministers. With this, I'll finish.
1 minute, one
Yes.
minute.
Resolution 13 will expose our fellowship to incalculable legal liability, as it will establish an unmanageable standard for the national office and then require they dismiss a minister who fails in the exceedingly subjective world of child abuse recognition and reporting. It's my professional opinion that safety for children can be better achieved by other means, utilizing what our secretary has mentioned, these 5 points today. Mr. Chair, I speak against its adoption.
Okay, thank you. You have before you unfinished business 13. Anyone who want to speak in favor of it not failing? Seeing no one in the queue, seeing no one at the microphone, are you ready to vote? If you vote yes, you're voting that Resolution 13 fails. If you vote nay, you vote that it remains. Ready? All in favor of Resolution 13 as brought back unfinished business to fail, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Okay, motion carried. Thank you so much. Choco, I'm going to invite you and your team to come as we